Welcome back. You know, there was a night over 30 years ago when a huge fish was seen floating in the shallow waters of Lake Erie near Lawrence Park. It was big news back then when it was brought to shore.
The father and son who found that whopper are still talking about it today. John Last has the story in this edition of The Last Word.
Anywhere near the Lake Erie shoreline, you most likely have done some fishing. And most likely, you have a story to tell. Well, I met two guys who may have the biggest fish story of all. This is John Madras and his son, Sean. They were fishing on Lake Erie in the summer of 1991 when they spotted something spectacular in the water.
We came in near the shore, and all of a sudden my son yelled out, "Dad, that's the biggest fish I've ever seen."
That is the beginning of one of Erie's biggest fish stories, a story about a fish that was so big it made headlines in the newspaper the next day. It's an exciting story, even though the fish was dead. It was floating belly up in the water. The newspaper described the fish as a sturgeon, over 6 feet long and weighing around 200 pounds.
So it was so large we didn't dare try to pull that fish up onto the boat. We just used the boat hook, put it in the fish's mouth, and my dad drove back at like 5-6 miles per hour, and we just towed it back to Lampe Marina.
The guy in the marina was so excited he called up the newspapers, the TVs, and he took 45 bags of ice out of the freezer to cover the fish. We made the front page of the newspaper, TV. Everywhere I went, that's all people were talking about was the fish.
The newspaper writer gave the fish a name, the Madras sturgeon. Father and son became kind of famous back in 1991. Sean was 17.
I do remember the news articles and such about that, and a little interview that we did at Lampe Marina, I think, that night. It was kind of a special little moment.
But whatever happened to the fish? Whatever happened to that big sturgeon? According to a September 2000 article in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, it was taken by the Fish Commission, embalmed, and put on display at the offices of the Walnut Creek Marina. It's believed to now be mounted on the wall at the fish hatchery in Linesville. With the last word at the home of the Lake Erie sturgeon, John Last, Erie News Now.
And John learned so much about Lake Erie sturgeons that he'll have another segment about them on Monday.
Yeah, this one will include the story of another large fish that washed ashore a few years ago that also had a lot of people talking. We'll be right back.